Manitoba is the latest province to announce it's mailing checks to some residents to help out with the high cost of living. Premier Heather Stefanson met with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau this afternoon, and inflation was on the agenda. Manitoba has the second highest inflation rate in Canada, and Premier Stefanson wants Trudeau to do more to bring it down. She is joining us from Winnipeg. Premier, you just met with the Prime Minister, and you both have been talking about some of the challenges right now, especially around the cost of living. Did the Prime Minister promise you anything to help your province out with this inflation crisis we're in right now?
Look, we had a good discussion, and a lot of it was focused on how we have worked together in the past and how we're focused on getting things done. Certainly when it comes to the cost of living, we did announce our package yesterday, a further package, $87 million for Manitoba families. And so we did have a discussion about those things, but we really focused on how we can work together to get things done.
Yeah, so you mentioned your $87 million package. You're sending some checks to families and some seniors to help with inflation that we're dealing with. But your province is running a deficit. You got a $550 million deficit. Do you think it's prudent right now, fiscally prudent, to be spending money on this sort of program?
Look, inflationary pressures are very real on not just Manitoba families, but families right across our country. So now is the time to help give a hand up to those that really need it. And that's why we income tested our package yesterday to ensure that it goes to those families who most need it, and to seniors as well, and those most vulnerable in our communities. We can't do this alone in Manitoba, though, so I did send a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau to calling on him to halt the carbon tax for right now, and also to reverse his decision on fertilizer. Those are things that are not making things more affordable for Manitobans or for Canadians, and so we have had that discussion as well. I think we'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah, let's get into the carbon tax in a minute. I just want to stay on these checks. We spoke to Alberta's finance minister yesterday. They're running a massive surplus there. I think it's over $13 billion. And they're not considering checks right now because they don't want to add to inflation. They don't want to fuel inflation. Are you worried that some of these checks, the payments you're sending out to families and seniors, are you worried they could be inflationary? They could make it worse?
I think that what's needed is money in the pockets of Manitobans right now, and that's why we income tested this. We did this. We have contingencies built into our budget for these very reasons, and so I think Manitobans were looking for something from us, for a bit of a hand up. And that's what we gave them yesterday. We'll continue to work as inflationary pressures continue on. We'll continue to work with Manitobans to ensure that they have the hand up that they need during these difficult times.
Healthcare is another big issue, of course, top of mind for Canadians as well. The system is really stretched. The federal government's been pretty coy about what they might offer provinces. Did you get any assurances from the Prime Minister today that there could be more money coming for health transfers?
So we did have a discussion, a significant discussion on healthcare. We know that it's a very significant issue across the country. Here in Manitoba, we've set up our surgical and diagnostic task force to help alleviate some of those pressures here at home, to ensure that Manitobans are getting the healthcare services that they need sooner. I am actually taking over as the Council of Federation chair later on this month. We did have discussions around that. Of course, the Council of Federation, we have been calling on the federal government to increase their portion of the funding for healthcare up to 35%. It's at 22% right now. It's a huge issue right across our country. We need to have and work together in these areas to ensure that Canadians and Manitobans get the healthcare that they need when they need it.
But did he give you any indication that more money is coming this fall?
He did indicate that that they are looking at this. There's no question, and of course, we as a Council of Federation want to have a seat at the table with the Prime Minister to have these discussions. It's very important. Every province and territory is very different in terms of the needs in healthcare, so it's very important that we don't have the strings attached to it. But we did have a good discussion about that. I think there is a willingness on their part to ensure that there is more money for healthcare. It's just a question of what that may look like.
You mentioned that you asked the Prime Minister to dump the carbon tax, to get rid of it, scrap it. not impose that on Manitoba families. But earlier today he was saying at a press conference that you're not really being honest about the carbon tax. He said that the average family in Manitoba is getting more back in a rebate than what they're actually paying in these fuel taxes that are levied on different products. What do you say to that? What do you say to the Prime Minister who's calling you essentially dishonest?
Well, I think that's disappointing. But what I will say is that I just don't believe, and we asked for a pause on the carbon tax right now during these inflationary pressures that Manitobans and Canadians are facing right now. Now is not the time to be taking more money out of the pockets of Manitobans. Manitobans need the hand up that they need, and so we're just calling on the federal government to pause that carbon tax right now. Don't take it out of the pockets of Manitobans or Canadians in the first place. Leave it in their pockets.
So you just want to pause? You don't think it should
Yes.
be gone entirely?
That's what we did. Yeah, we sent a letter asking for a pause right now. These are extraordinary times. These inflationary pressures are very significant, having a significant impact on Manitobans and on Canadians. Now is not the time to be taking more money out of the pockets of Manitobans or Canadians.
If you don't want the federal backstop, though, or if you want to pause on it, why don't you come up with your own climate plan? Why don't you have some sort of made in Manitoba approach to a carbon pricing scheme that might be better off for your people then you'd be done with Ottawa once and for all?
Well, we tried that and they rejected us, right? So that was a challenge, and obviously, it didn't work, and it's unfortunate. But we are where we are right now, where they have put in the backstop in Manitoba. And we think it's wrong. Now is not the time, given what is happening around the world, what's happening in our country. Inflation has a very real impact on Manitobans and on Canadians. Now's the time where we need a hand up for those individuals who really need it. That's why we announced our affordability package for Manitobans yesterday.
Okay, thank you, Premier Heather Stefanson, the Premier of Manitoba. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.